Good morning everybody. Welcome to the Gameweek 5 deadline stream. Wow, lots of things to talk about as always. But I'm happy that in Gameweek 6 I'm going to be wildcarding because my team had quite a bit of flags and I've already made a transfer. I've actually done Isak to Watkins before the price rise. I know I did say in the team selection video that I wasn't certain which move I wanted to make, but after thinking it through a little bit more, I felt like the Isak to Watkins move was kind of the best for my team. So that's where I've gone. And by the way, like for those of you watching, please let me know if you can hear me clearly because we are using a new microphone. So if you can hear me clearly, please let me know in the chat. Like just say the sound is all right. Alright, nice to see all of you guys bright and early today. JS, nice to see you. Good morning. FPL Jelly, good morning as well. VJ, always here. Good morning. Hey, from Wet Yorkshire. Alright, thank you. So you guys can hear me clearly. Very, very good. So I've kind of changed the microphone a little bit. So thank you for letting me know. Vincent says Captain Who, Eze, Palmer, Jota. I mean, if I'm not captaining Salah, I mean, Eze is off penalties. Maybe Palmer. Tottenham for life. Nice to see you. Woke up early just for this. Thank you very, very much. Thank you for tuning in. Right, and thanks for letting me know that you guys can hear me as well. Your master says Pedro in or out. So I mean, honestly, based on the quote from Hertzler, honestly, there's nothing much to go by, and he also only plays on the Sunday. But what we hear is that he has trained, so at least that is good. And my thoughts is that he will start. I mean, there's many ways to interpret the quote, and maybe it's a bit of a bias because I do hope that he starts. Because I have him in my starting 11. And I prefer to start Smith Rowe ahead of Minte as well. Right, so I'll speak more about my team in a bit. Let me just say hi to some of you guys in the chat. Mick Dad, Sanjay, fellow Singaporean here, nice to see you. Love your early starts, keep up the great work. Thank you very much, Sanjay. Best Muniz replacement, Vardy, Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Start Gabriel or Harwood Bellis. Has to be Gabriel, right? Has to be Gabriel. Did you get in Watkins for Isak last night? Yes, I did. So that was my transfer in. Let me just go through my team for a bit, right? Since there's already 51 of you guys in the chat. Thank you all for tuning in. It's bright and early today. Before we start, please do drop a like on the stream. Please do drop a like on the stream. And also we are closing in on 9,000 subscribers. I don't think we can get there by today's stream, but if we can do it, I might just give out a couple of, I'm not sure if I have a couple of memberships to give out. YouTube hands them to me every month. So every month I have a couple of memberships to give away. So if we're able to hit 9,000 subscribers, maybe, but I mean, we're quite far away. We're about 150 subscribers away. Who knows? But yeah, if you haven't, please do drop a like. Please do subscribe. Let me just go through my team very quickly. So Henderson in goal. Unfortunately, this is the last week. It's the last dance with Henderson, and it hasn't been a very fun dance. Like he's been quite frustrating to own, to say the least. Not many clean sheets. There was 1 week he got 4 points and scored pretty much the more points than other keepers, but aside from that, it's been downhill. So I'm just gonna transfer him out on my Gameweek 6 wildcard. That's Henderson. Now for Dunk, Trent and Porro, that's the area where I'm pretty confident in. I do think like it's a pretty strong defense for this week. In midfield is Rogers, Jota, Smith Rowe and Salah. So to start Smith Rowe ahead of Minte is simply because I think Minte has played quite a bit of minutes. And when I was transferring Minte in Game Week 4, I didn't really imagine that he would be playing this EFL Cup in the midweek, but since then he's gotten quite um, a number of minutes under his belt. So basically, I don't think he starts. In fact, like there's many other forward options or attackers that Brighton can go for. So I mean, the predicted lineups have Jorginho Rata to start on the right wing instead of Minte. So I think a couple of predictions also predict that he doesn't start, but in place of Simon Adingra, for example. So I do think like I'm not super confident in Minte starting. So I've dropped him down to the bench. He was a bit of a failed punt, I have to say. But yeah, starting Smith Rowe ahead of him. Rogers and Jota, I'm hoping they get something this week. Jota, honestly speaking, not super confident of the way he's playing. And I'm definitely not as confident on him as Arne Slot and his team is, because they seem to think that Jota is, playing exactly how they want him to play, which is great. He probably starts in Gameweek 5. And hopefully he gets something. I mean, I just need these players simply for one more week until I wildcard in Gameweek 6. Up front, I've done Isak to Watkins before the price rise. I did feel like there was a higher chance of João Pedro starting this week instead of Isak, because Isak hasn't trained. So again, a late call has to be made on Isak. But I think in terms of João Pedro, I do feel like he's the one with a higher likelihood to start. So I've started him here ahead of Minte as well, because if João Pedro starts, I definitely prefer him in my starting 11 than Minte. So there we go. Salah captain. I'm not even going to discuss captaincy this week. Like if you have Salah, you captain him. But Watkins is my vice captain. So there we go. Let me know what you guys think. What have you guys done as well, and any of your dilemmas? Ricky is in the chat. Nice to see you. A member in the chat as well. Going for a differential captaincy this week? Probably not. I'd probably just go Salah. Start Muniz, Winks, or Greaves. Muniz, I think it's pretty much done with Muniz as an option. I'd even start Winks against I'd even start Greaves against Southampton away ahead of Muniz now. Nico Potato says, hello Leon, how are you doing? I'm good. Hope you're good as well. Who to bench? Smith Rowe, Rogers, Eze, or João Pedro? I definitely would start Eze. Smith Rowe, Rogers, and João Pedro. It depends if you think that João Pedro will start. If you think João Pedro starts, you can put him in your starting 11. Then it'll come down to Smith Rowe or Rogers, in which case I may favor Rogers a little bit. Isak replacement option to bring in Salah. So if you are downgrading Isak, if you don't go up to Watkins, if you're downgrading, I think Solanke is decent for this week. Further down the kind of forward options, there's also Calvert-Lewin, there's Vardy as well. Yeah, please don't spam the chat. Thank you for moderating the chat, VJ. Appreciate it. All right. Jackson or Vardy or Calvert-Lewin. I wouldn't go for Jackson this week. Oh, by the way, if you guys are wondering what this is the mic, basically. I have it like clipped onto me at the bottom. So if you happen to see it, don't be surprised. Jackson, Vardy, or Calvert-Lewin? I think Jackson is not really worth the price, if I am honest. So I think it's down to Vardy or Calvert-Lewin, in which case for me it depends on how long you need the player for. If it's a 1 week punt, I prefer Vardy. If it's longer term, I prefer Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Should I transfer Isak to Dominic Calvert-Lewin this week? Yeah, that sounds great to me. Jackson or Vardy or Calvert-Lewin, who to pick? Yeah, answered that one. Opinion on Solanke, I think he's fine. I think you can go for him. Pick 2 from Solanke, Jackson, and Havertz. See, this is a tricky question, right? Because if you're on a wild card in Gameweek 5, despite Jackson having the better fixture, I think going for Havertz would make more sense, because he's the one that can form part of your triple up for from Gameweek 6 onwards. And also, I think it's, if you happen to be on a wild card in Gameweek 5, I think it's worth considering how you want to triple up on Arsenal. Do you want double defense, double attack? that's going to be important moving forward. You're likely not going to change your Arsenal triple up for quite a while, so you have to stick with that. I mean, for what it's worth, I'm leaning towards double defense. But yeah, I mean, it could work both ways as well. Who to start from? Valtface, Rico, and Greaves. Probably Greaves. Do you think João Pedro starts? I do think so. But it's guesswork, right? It's guesswork. Like, we don't really know. I'm just making a guess. Bench Robinson or Smith Rowe. I would start Smith Rowe ahead of Robinson. So if it's between the two of them, I would bench Robinson. Should I play Aina over any one of Mazraoui, Konza, Pedro Porro? Definitely not Pedro Porro and not Konza as well. Mazraoui this week, Manchester United, they have Crystal Palace. Mazraoui. Aina against Brighton though. Maybe Mazraoui ahead of Aina. Can you look at my team and tell me what you changed? Yeah, sure. Just drop your team in the chat. Would you sell Isak? And if so, who for if you can't afford Watkins? So there's Solanke, Calvert-Lewin, and Vardy. Those are the three main options that I'll be looking at. Rune, member in the chat as well. I have done Vissa to Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Was considering Jota to Maddison as a punt, but it will cost me -4. I have Salah. I love a nice differential, but Jota's ceiling is way higher if he starts. Thoughts? I think Jota to Maddison this week is not really a move I would make, because I think that Jota will start, and against Bournemouth at home, I also back him to do quite well. So I think the Vissa to Calvert-Lewin move, I agree with that one. I probably would have done that as well. Bench one of Saka, Rogers, and João Pedro. I mean, if it comes down to these three, probably João Pedro, because the rest of them are pretty much going to start. I got Robinson in my starting 11 and I have a free transfer. What to do? If you have room for a 1 week punt, I don't think I would take it in the defense. I would take the 1 week punts in the attack. So maybe a midfield change or a forward change. FPL Diamond says like, share, subscribe. Thank you very much for helping to plug the channel in the chat. All the moderators, really appreciate it. What should be the bench order? Semenyo, Greaves, and Valtface. I put Semenyo. I put Greaves ahead of Semenyo. I mean, Semenyo has Liverpool. I don't think Bournemouth get too much there. So maybe Greaves, Semenyo, and then Valtface, probably. Why is everyone waiting till next week to wildcard? Many teams need it now. I mean, if you need it now, by all means, you can use it in Gameweek 5 as well. It's just that Gameweek 5 wildcarders, I made a wildcard video earlier in the week. Gameweek 5 wildcarders would find themselves 1 week too early on the Arsenal and the Brentford fixture swings. So you may have a slightly less than optimal team this week because of the nature of the fact that you need to include these Arsenal and Brentford players in your team from the get-go. So slightly less than optimal team now, and then come Game Week 6, that's when your team will start to look good. So I think it really depends, right? If your team is in bad shape, by all means, you can use it now. And I think something to think about as well is I've seen a couple of drafts that simply just go making Game Week 6 wildcard based on the fixtures that they have then, and then just go for that exact same team now in Game Week 5. So you basically wildcard now in Game Week 5 with a team that you would have gone for in Game Week 6 so that you're prepared, basically. So that works as well if that's what you prefer. Other cheap options than Watkins for Isak, so Solanke, Vardy, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Felt like I've said this one a lot. Options for Vissa, Calvert-Lewin, and Vardy. Calvert-Lewin and Vardy. There's 146 of you guys watching. Thank you all for coming bright and early today. If you haven't yet done so, please do drop a like on the stream so that we can get to more people, so that the algorithm gods will like it. Would you transfer out Isak and Munoz for Vardy / Calvert-Lewin and Trent, or just roll Wildcard next week? Munoz. Depends who your keeper is. I mean, if your keeper is Henderson as well, then I don't mind the Trent move. Even if you're wildcarding next week, I don't mind the Trent move. Simply because I think if you double up on Crystal Palace defense this week, that's less than ideal. So, say for example, your keeper is Henderson, and you have Munoz as well. I'd probably make that move, Isak and Munoz, to... If I have to pick one for a 1 week punt, since you're on a wild card next week, it'll be Vardy and then Trent. That's what I do. Should I start Smith Rowe in place of either Isak or João Pedro? I would think so. That's what I would do. I mean, I would make a call on whether I think Isak or João Pedro is more likely to start. Despite that being difficult to call, I would try to make a judgment call on whether I think Isak or João Pedro starts. Then I would start that player and I'll bench the other one, and Smith Rowe just goes into the starting 11. Other cheap option than Watkins for Isak. So again, Solanke, Vardy and Calvert-Lewin. Mateta is a good shout. I don't mind Mateta, but I mean, is this the week to go for a punt like Mateta when he plays Manchester United at home? I mean, there's every chance that Manchester United concede, but surely there's better fixtures like Brentford at home for Solanke, or Vardy has Vardy has Everton, also a very good fixture there. What should I transfer? I own both Vissa and João Pedro and Watkins. I think Vissa out is probably the move there. Vissa to Calvert-Lewin, Vissa to Vardy. Trent captain, what do you think? I don't mind it. I'm assuming you don't have Salah and you're looking for ways to cover Salah captaincy. I don't mind it. But it's not. I mean, it's not a captaincy that I would go for if I had Salah. Like if you have Salah, I don't think we overthink it. But if you don't have Salah, then I don't mind Trent as a captain. I also don't mind Watkins as a captain, though you probably aren't going to get 90 minutes from him. But yeah, I think an outside captaincy shout this week is actually Son. For those of you who have Son, I think Son is an outside shout as well. And then Palmer, of course. Going to captain Solanke. Just realized Solanke is an anagram of Kane. I hope that works out. Wildcard in Gameweek 6. Have already done Muniz to Vardy. Should I do a -4 Isak out, Solanke in? Winks will come in though if Isak doesn't start. If your bench cover is not as strong, like Winks is not a good option for you to come in at all. Is it worth taking a -4? I mean, for what it's worth, I actually do think that there's a decent enough chance. I mean, again, the quotes from Eddie Howe is just extremely useless. So I don't think it's going to be easy for us to call. So I'm not going to sit here and say whether I think Isak is going to start or not. But if you do take a -4, then what I would say is you need quite a significant return from Solanke for that to pay off. Kath then says, hi, I need advice. Should I do Pedro to Calvert-Lewin? I need a player to play, but I actually like Pedro long-term and Calvert-Lewin as well. So I would make a judgment call, basically. Like, do you think João Pedro starts? For what it's worth, João Pedro has trained. The exact number of times, honestly, I've seen various sources say different things. I think at minimum he's trained once. There are some sources saying he's trained twice. But regardless, he is training. Isak is the one that's not in training so far. He wasn't in the training midweek as well. Yesterday during the press conferences, he also wasn't in training. So I think he's the one, in my opinion, that is less likely to start because he hasn't, trained at all this week. But that's not to say that he can't start without having trained as well. So Eddie Howe is, a serial liar. So we don't really know. It could very well happen that Isak starts, but you have to make a judgment call. and decide whether it's worth to remove either one of them. Mbeumo for Jota and Dominic Calvert-Lewin from João Pedro. Not this week. I keep Jota this week. Why are you thinking Dominic Calvert-Lewin over Chris Wood? Chris Wood is just not a player I would go for this week. Like Chris Wood from like on a wild card, I don't mind going for Chris Wood, but like surely there are better fixtures than Brighton away. I would think this is not the week, but I think in terms of longer term, like if you're saving the wild card and you want to bring Chris Wood in this week, like I would understand why you would go there. I did Gakpo in for Isak, big wrist, but X fun. I do think I hope we get leaks. For those of you thinking about Gakpo, I do hope we get leaks. We'll see what happens. They are, I think the 3 p.m. kickoff. Yeah, they're the 3 p.m. kickoff. The earliest game would be the West Ham and Chelsea game. Smith Rowe or Konza on the bench? Smith Rowe. Vardy or Calvert-Lewin, pick one. It depends on how long you need the player for. 1 game week, then I'd be Vardy. Longer term, then Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Can you explain your reasoning for starting João Pedro over Minte? Is Minte out of favour? Great question. So for this one, I think Minte has played a lot of minutes recently. So I've seen a couple of predictors, Brighton predictors, who've said that they do think Minte gets a rest this week. I think there's different reasons as to why I tend to believe that will be the case as well. Minutes is just one aspect of it. But when I look at the alternatives that they have, like Simon Adingra has been playing so well, it's perfectly viable that he plays there. And also Jorginho Rata can also come in. So I think Minte, against Nottingham Forest, who look pretty decent as well defensively, I'm not expecting so much from him. But with João Pedro, it's different. Like if João Pedro starts, as well as him being on penalties, he's so much better of an asset. And that's why I'm starting João Pedro ahead of Minte. I'm not so sure if it will be a case where João Pedro will miss out completely if he's not fit. Like, I don't think it's that kind of a scenario, because sometimes when we are unsure of whether players are going to start or not, we can kind of fall back on the fact that, say for example, the Haaland situation against Brentford, where he had an unfortunate family friend passing away. So condolences there, but for that particular week, I was confident enough to captain him, simply because if he wasn't ready to start, I don't think he would get any minutes whatsoever. But I think this week with João Pedro is slightly different. I think I could see a case where even if he doesn't start, because he's had a couple of training sessions already, maybe if Brighton really need him to come on to make a difference, say for example they're losing, I could see João Pedro coming on later in the game. So there's definitely a risk involved here, but I still think higher upside than the potential benching for Minte. So, not trying to scare Mongo or anything. That's just, rambling a bit on my thoughts. Ken Mr. Bird says, hello from Malaysia. Nice to see you. Give Rodgers a chance or go for a Muniz transfer. Give Rodgers a chance. Surely this is the week. I'm not sure how long more we can say this. Kath then says, I have Davies, Raya, Rodgers and Porro on the bench. Should I bench Bruce? Definitely not this week. My idea for Gameweek 6 Wildcard. Alright, so Gameweek 6 Wildcard, I've actually made a couple of drafts already, and I'm also preparing to record the video later today for the ultimate Gameweek 6 Wildcard, or the Wildcard video that I released during the games. I do think the Gameweek 6 Wildcard is starting to shape up as if there will be a couple of obvious picks. But I think the forward options, especially the cheaper ones, a decision has to be made there. That's just initial thoughts there. So I'm looking at your draft. It's Raya, Gabriel Konza, Milenkovic, and then Palmer, Saka, Salah, Mbeumo. So you have no Haaland in this draft. So it's Watkins, Calvert-Lewin, and Strand Larsen. I would think that I go for Haaland, right? I would think Haaland is pretty locked in my Game Week 6 wildcard. That's initial thoughts. I think it's possible to include Salah as well, but Saka is also locked on a Game Week 6 wildcard. So you're probably going to have to go for very cheap options elsewhere if you even want to keep Salah, Saka, and Haaland all on a Game Week 6 wildcard. It's going to be tricky. Chris Orton says, Good morning to you. Thank you for joining. There's already quite a number of you guys. There's 236 of you guys, so thank you all for tuning in. If you haven't already, please do drop a like on the stream. We are at, let me just do a quick check. We are at 52 likes. So we'll try and aim for 100 likes today. So if you haven't already, please do help me drop a like and also subscribe. We are closing in on 9,000 subscribers. So hopefully we can get somewhere close to that today. Fabio Carvalho. So I think this week, especially the Brentford and Spurs game. Alright, couple of things that I'm going to be looking out for this week. The Brentford versus Spurs game. What I'm going to be looking out for is how Brentford set up without Yohan Wissa. Does Schade play through the middle? How sharp does he look? Does Fabio Carvalho get a start in maybe the right wing or maybe in the attacking midfield positions? What happens with Brentford and how do they look without Yohan Wissa? So I really want to assess that. So that's the first thing I'll be keeping a lookout for. Second thing I'll be looking out for is whether Ollie Watkins and John Duran will be able to play together. Because Unai Emery has always talked, recently in the press conferences about how he wants to try and fit both John Duran and Ollie Watkins into the same team and just have them play together because they're both so good. So I want to see if that happens, and if it does, does John Duran become an option? All right, so that's one. Sorry, that's the second one. The third thing is Rico Lewis for the Man City and Arsenal game. Does Rico Lewis start that game? Because if he does start that game, my thinking may change a bit about whether how nailed I think Rico Lewis is. And obviously as well, how do Arsenal look and set up against tougher oppositions without Odegaard? Where does Havertz play? We've seen Havertz play in a similar position that he did the whole of the kind of starting part of the season. He's played at the number 9 role. He also played in that position in Game Week 4. Does he continue to do that in Game Week 5? Because if he does, then I think maybe we can conclusively say that Havertz is not dropping back in the midfield. And if that's the case, then his appeal continues to be good. Because initially when Odegaard was out, the thinking was that Havertz would drop back. But now if it's not the case, then maybe Havertz and double Arsenal attack on the Game Week 6 wildcard is not too bad as well. So a lot of things that I'll be keeping a lookout for in on Game Week 6 wildcard, as well as looking at the Game Week 5 games. Lots to learn. So the football this weekend is going to be a good watch. But yeah, Fabio Carvalho. We'll see what happens there. I have my radar on him. I also am looking at Kevin Schade, so we'll see what happens. Right, I'm quite far behind on the chat, so let me just speed up a little bit. I will likely go for a wildcard in Game Week 6. Suggest me a Muniz replacement, Vardy or Calvert-Lewin. If you wildcard in Game Week 6, I think Vardy is the one I would go for. Should I keep Muniz or transfer him out for a -4? This one depends on your bench options. If you have a good enough bench option, then by all means just start that bench option and then bench Muniz. Based on your guess, what's the percentage of Dominic Calvert-Lewin starting? I would say 99%. He's back on the grass and he's recovered from his illness basically. João Pedro I think is a little bit more difficult to call. That one I have him in my head as like someone that I think will start. But to put a percentage to it, 70%. I'd say 70% because he's had training sessions already. So he's had training sessions. I think that's just my opinion. Thank you very much, Jelly Dude, for becoming a Tier 3 member. Feel free to connect your YouTube account to Discord and you'll be automatically added into our Discord. So I will chat with you more on the Discord. Thank you for becoming a member. For those of you who are interested as well, you can also become a member and support the channel, but also basically interact with me on a deeper level. I've done a knee-jerk wildcard, so now I built the team imagining game week 6. So yeah, I mean, this is a strategy that I've seen a couple of people on a game week 5 wildcard use, where you just don't want to miss out on the game week 6 gains, and you're just simply building a game week 6 wildcard, using it now in game week 5. And you're probably going to face suboptimal fixtures this week, but that's the way it is. Like a game week 5 wildcard is tricky to make. You are 1 week early on the fixture swings, but you still have to go for them. Calvert-Lewin or Solanke for 1 week. I actually prefer Vardy over the two of them for a 1 week punt. But it's between Calvert-Lewin and Solanke. Probably say Calvert-Lewin. Only because I think Solanke is still not fully up to speed yet. What about Strand Larsen? Is he an option? I think in game week 10 or game week 11, when Wolves have a bit of a fixture swing, I think that is when I will start to think about Strand Larsen. But I also do think like Cunha is the one I will go for. I just spend the extra money and go for Cunha. Captain Watkins, Palmer or Calvert-Lewin. If it's between the three of them, it'd either be Watkins or Palmer. And I'm thinking Palmer because he's likely going to get better minutes and he's also on penalties, which Watkins is probably not. Who would you start out of Smith Rowe, Pedro, and Madueke? Also Robinson or Rico Lewis? Very, very tricky. So, okay, defenders-wise, I'd go for Robinson. Midfielders-wise, or attackers-wise, Smith Rowe, João Pedro, and Madueke. I probably bench João Pedro, then I start Smith Rowe and Madueke. That's probably what I do. Robinson, Gabriel, Howard, Bellis, Vardy, I'll start 2. This is so tricky. Definitely not Howard Bellis. So it's between Robinson, Gabriel, and Vardiol. Would you start Vardiol and Gabriel when they play each other? I'd probably start Robinson and then I'd pick one. And I would say Gabriel. Gabriel or Vardiol. I mean, okay, in terms of clean sheet odds wise, Vardiol has the higher clean sheet odds. And I also do think he starts. I don't think it'd be a case like game week 4 where Vardiol didn't start. So because of that, I think, okay, I changed my mind. I probably go Vardiol and Robinson. And then I bench Gabriel. Could seem like a crime after coming off a 15-pointer. Is Kulu a good option against Brentford? I don't mind it. It's just, I think they have better players to go for. Start Gibbs White or risk João Pedro? Gibbs White is on penalties. Start Gibbs White or risk João Pedro? I think I start Gibbs White. That one is tricky. Wildcard in game week 5 or in game week 6. This one comes down to how bad your team looks right now. If your team is really in need of a wildcard, then I don't mind it. I think the more pertinent question actually, I mean just sidetracking a little bit, I think a lot of people will find themselves in game week 6 because I've had a look into the future game weeks. I think on game week 6 wildcard, in game week 6 in general, it is likely that people would be in positions where they can actually stick with their team and wildcard 1 week later in game week 7. So I'll go in depth into this discussion in the later videos this week. I have one video coming out tonight after the Saturday games, and I also have another video coming out on Sunday after the Sunday games. And basically those two videos are centered around wildcarding, so how a wildcard 6 draft looks like currently, and also the difference between a wildcard in game week 6 and a wildcard in game week 7. So I think that one is slightly more tricky. But now in game week 5, I think the real question is about whether you are in need of a wildcard or not. If you don't, then I suggest you delay it one more week. Like that would be my advice. What are your thoughts on Foden for the Man City fixture run? For me, Foden is really only an option insofar as Kevin De Bruyne is out. At least for game week 5, it seems like Kevin De Bruyne will not start, in which case I think Foden fills in that spot, and Pep has also said that Foden is ready to play 90 minutes. So I do think, like, for game week 5 specifically, Foden is a decent 1 week option. But then later down the line, once Kevin De Bruyne is back, like, he starts to become a non-option again until I see that he comes back into the starting 11 and gets consistent minutes, starts a good number of games in a row as well, before I actually think that he's the one I would go for. So that's my thoughts on Foden. Arsenal are good defensive, so stacking their defender is a good choice, but without Odegaard, their attack is pretty much non-existent. City defense is weak. It's a safe clean sheet. I mean, yeah, I would go for Vardy, right, in that position. Like, if it's between starting Vardy and Gabriel, I will start Vardy. Who should I pick in place of Isak and João Pedro? Planning to transfer out both of them and 1.8 million in the bank. Then you go for Watkins, because you have extra money in the bank. You go for Watkins, and you also do João Pedro to either one of Calvert-Lewin or Vardy. I don't know how to get Watkins in my team as I don't have the room. Is he essential for this week? I don't think Watkins is essential for this week. You don't have to rip your team up just to get him. Can you tell us your transfers, please, if any? I've done Watkins in for Isak. That's what I've done before the price change. Transfer out Isak or Muniz. Muniz is more of an issue for me, to be honest. Will Jota start? I think Jota will start. Jelly Dude says, long-time viewer, first-time joiner. Thank you very much for becoming a member. I see that you joined the Discord as well, so I'll speak with you later on in the Discord. Yeah, awesome stuff. Will Rico Lewis start and play 90 minutes? There's honestly no way we can tell. But if I have to make a call, honestly, I don't even want to make a call. Like, this specific fixture is the one where we want to see if Rico Lewis will start or not. If he does start, even against difficult opposition like Arsenal, then I think I have a little bit more confidence. Maybe I consider him on a Game Week 6 wildcard. Never back the early kickoff. So no Captain Palmer then. Start Smith Rowe. Eze has to be Eze. Did you take out Isak for Watkins? Yes, I did that. VJ says Naren G has been patient. Did I miss a chat? Let me just go back a little bit. Naren G, right. Bench João Pedro and play Amadou Onana. What do you think? Nah, I'm not a fan of that. I will start João Pedro and hope he starts. If not, then you get Onana off the bench. That's what I do. Thanks for pointing out, VJ. Appreciate it. Why Smith Rowe over Minte? Because I think, I mean, again, this is just my own thoughts after looking at a couple of Brighton predictors make their predictions and have Minte benched. I think that he may not start this week. That's just my kind of gut feel. And I think because of that, I just go with my gut feel and bench him. I don't think the I mean, could be famous last words, but I don't think the difference will be that great. So I'm fine to start Smith Rowe. And Smith Rowe is of a higher ownership. So if I do bench him, yeah, he's like 27.2% ownership. So if I do bench him and he pops off, like he's gonna hurt the rank a lot more. Henderson or Raya for this game week? I honestly want to say Raya, just for, I think he'll get a decent number of saves even, like Raya, and there's always a chance of 0-0 for Man City versus Arsenal. Like defensively, they can just completely both go into a low block, and I mean I wouldn't say a low block, but they just lock out the teams. When Man City attack, Arsenal can just be so solid as a block, and Man City, I think they are less solid in defense. I mean, they haven't really kept a lot of clean sheets this season. They're definitely not as good of a defense, but Arsenal's firepower up front has also dwindled down a little bit with Odegaard missing out. So yeah, I foresee a 0-0 game, to be honest. Percival, nice to see you. Today's target is 200 likes. We have 79 likes already, and there is 264 of you guys watching. So if a couple of you guys could just help me out to drop a like on the stream. The aim is 100 likes, so I think we're 30 people away. So if you haven't, please do drop a like on the stream. Really appreciate it. Right, let me speed up a little bit. João Pedro to Vardy. Long term, I would go for Calvert-Lewin. Watkins in for Isak, yes. Start Eze or Smith Rowe, I start Eze. Should I start Onana over Eze, Smith Rowe, or Mbeumo? No, I wouldn't start Onana over any of those players. Is Kevin De Bruyne out? A late call will be made on his fitness. Smith Rowe instead of Minte? Yes, that's what I've done. Should I start Luka Dean or Rashford? I would say Rashford. Rodgers or Vardy on the bench? Rodgers. Kevin De Bruyne is 50-50 to start. Yep. Chalet Dude says Saka to Palmer for a -4 just as a 1 week punt, and then wildcard in game week 6. I don't mind it. I just think is the upside worth it or not. I mean, -4 points simply means that you need Palmer to at least get one return to pay off, and then after that, the points that you gain would really be the gains. So I think tough one. It could work out. I think it could work out. But if I think about whether I would do it, I'd probably not do it. Like, not for a hit. Pedro, Rodgers, and Mbeumo, which one to bench, please? Definitely not benching Mbeumo. Rodgers and Pedro, probably Pedro. João Pedro. Chile Dude says, that's true, just love Palmer, but his price season sucks. Yeah, exactly. He's 10.5, so he has to justify 10.5, you know. Best 3 forwards on a wild card except Watkins and Haaland. There's Calvert-Lewin. If you're on a wild card and you intend to keep Chris Wood for long, I don't mind Chris Wood as well. There's also Vardy, but not on a wild card. So yeah, Calvert-Lewin, Chris Wood. Should I start Onana over Smith Rowe and Eze? No. Select 3. Savinho, Mitoma, João Pedro, Lewis, Mazraoui, or Havertz. What's the context there? Percival says, can you explain why you bench Minte instead of Smith Rowe? I think Minte would be benched. That's my guess. Who's your favourite 5.5 midfielder for the long term? Deciding between Semenyo, McNeil or Schade. I think it has to be Schade. Yep. Like, if I have to make a call this week, I think Schade would get more returns in the long term. I know Semenyo has good fixtures in game week 6 and game week 7, but then after that it's a tough run in 8, 9 and 10 as well, in which case you can jump onto him after that. So that's why I say Schade for at least the immediate good fixtures as well. What do you think are the best 1 week punts this week? They're mainly in the forward positions, like the Vardys of the world, Calvert-Lewin. I think Watkins is a great 1 week punt as well. In midfield, I think... Oh, sorry. Up front, there's also Gakpo for a 1 week punt. Like, if you can stretch the Gakpo. Obviously, depending on leaks, right? If we get news that he starts, then yes, he becomes a good punt. So, those are my favorite 1 week punts. Should I start Amadou Onana? I wouldn't. I mean, my thoughts on Onana is that he's still a defensive midfielder. I don't see him getting... I mean, he's getting the goals. I know he's getting the goals, but I don't see him getting into those positions as much as, Rodgers, for example. Leaves on the Tree says, I'm going for a Brentford clean sheet today. I think Spurs are close to turning on Big Ange. Is that right? That is an interesting prediction. I mean, I think it'd be close. I don't think Spurs run away with it. But I would say, I guess I kind of back them to win still. Is Kevin De Bruyne out? It's a 50-50 call on whether Kevin De Bruyne will be fit to start. Jackson or Solanke already have Son. What's your opinion? I don't really like Jackson, like, if I'm honest. And if you have Son already, you don't want to be too heavy on Spurs, then I go for the cheap forwards. Trent captain, yeah, that could work. I just wouldn't overthink it if I had Salah already, though. Salah, Schade, Isak, or Saka, Eze, and Wood. Probably the first one, but Isak is a bit of a risk this week. Start Robinson over Porro, Gabriel, Lewis, or Aina. Porro, no. Over Lewis. I'll probably go over Lewis. Thoughts on Spurs? Can't seem to break down a low block. You think they'll struggle today? I mean, I'm not super confident of Spurs, if I'm honest. Like, I'm not confident that Spurs will run away with the game. By the way, for those of you who just joined and you see this kind of a little thing here, that's the mic. So if you are able to hear me clearly, like, please do let me know. It's just it's like a ball of fur that I clip on my shirt. Jelly Dude says, reluctant. I think Saka has returned all games so far. Yes, he has indeed. So that's really, like, I don't think it's worth it. So I actually wouldn't do it for myself. But I can see why you would be tempted to. And it could very well work out. It's just not the way I would play it. Start João Pedro and Mbeumo. Definitely Mbeumo. Vincent says, Vincent's a member as well. So thank you for being a member. Would you hold Jota, Winks, Muniz this week, or take a -4 to do Mbeumo, McNeil, Larson? Does that mean that you need to start Winks and Muniz? If it does, then I will take the -4. But if it doesn't, then I just hold Jota and start. I think Jota is fine to start this week. Isak and Saka to Salah and Watkins, with Salah captain for a -8 wildcard next week. Is it viable? -8 just before a wildcard does not really seem like a very good play, in my opinion. Isak and Saka to Salah and Watkins, with Salah captain. How does the rest of your team look like? Let me have a look. Thank you, VJ, and thank you, VJ and FPL Diamond, for the plugs. Really appreciate it. Thanks for the donation as well, VJ. I think I missed a couple of super chats. Fintech's Academy, thank you for the super chat. Bench 1 of Robinson, Aina, Trent, and Gabriel. For me, it would come down to Aina or Robinson. I probably bench Robinson, so I start Aina, Trent, and Gabriel. The benching of Robinson is basically that I think it's less likely he keeps a clean sheet. But I have to say it's close between Aina and Robinson. If you want to back the home fixture, then you can go for Robinson in the starting 11. And I mean, by all means, like, Nottingham Forest playing away to Brighton is not the most ideal, but Nottingham Forest are a pretty decent defense. So it comes down, it's close between Robinson and Aina, but Trent and Gabriel for me definitely will be starting. Gabriel or Bernardo is first sub. Gabriel. Start Isak or Smith Rowe. Isak or Smith Rowe. I'd say Smith Rowe just because I think there's enough doubt in my mind that I think Isak doesn't start. There's enough doubt in my mind there. Sixth Man Pod says, would you start any City or Arsenal defender looking at 0-0 scoreline? I would start Vardiol. I'll be less keen to start Gabriel, but it's also a case where I wouldn't mind it if I have to start Gabriel. Bench 1 of Semenyo or Gabriel. The rest of my game week 5 is good. Not sure who to bench. Probably Semenyo, and then I start Gabriel. Ronnie says, I have Welbeck right now. Do I sell for cover or roll the transfer? I think you roll the transfer because I think Welbeck starts this week. Mic is fine, audio is good. Thank you very much for letting me know. Kwanzaa or Greaves or Rico Lewis or Nedeljkovic. Like there's a couple of predictors I've seen that have, gone for Kwanzaa in their starting 11. Like, I think that is interesting. And it's tactical reasons that they have Kwanzaa in there. I guess I need a leak to be very certain that I can start Kwanzaa. Greaves, Rico Lewis or Nedeljkovic. Nedeljkovic is out. Like, he's not someone I would start. Too risky there. So it's Rico Lewis or Greaves. In which case, I think maybe just go for the safer pick in Greaves against Southampton. Why not? FPL Diamond says, Leon, when is the wedding? The wedding is actually next year. I'm not sure if I have told you guys as well, because I try to keep the personal life separate. But I mean, at least for those of you guys watching, there's about 256 of you guys. I will be getting married next year. Sometime in the middle of next year. So we'll see what... I don't think it will... clash in terms of like FPL content, but just in general, it's just my personal life stuff. So yeah, hope it goes well. The planning is also going decently. So yeah, very exciting times ahead. Should I take a -4 to switch Isak with Watkins? Do you have a bench option? Like, if you have a bench option, then I don't think I would take the -4. Like, if you have a good enough player to come off your bench, then that's what I would do. Bowen and Solanke or Smith Rowe and Haaland? Bowen and Solanke, Smith Rowe and Haaland. I would say you have to have Haaland, right? Like on a wild card especially, I think you definitely have Smith Rowe and Haaland. Would you have João Pedro on a Game Week 5 wild card? No, I don't think I will. Son a good choice replacing Saka for Game Week 5. Yes, decent enough. Palmer is also fine. For a hit, maybe not so. Varial to Robertson, that could work. As a 1 week punt, that could work. But starting Vardiol is fine as well, and then banking the transfer, especially now that you can carry transfers through your wildcard. So yeah. Tom says it's not gonna be 0-0, let's be real. I mean, we've seen it happen so many times. So, Should I do João Pedro plus Minte to cover Lewin and Shada this week? I don't mind that move. Hey, thank you all for the congratulations. I've just seen it. JS, Jelly Dude, Nico Potato, Leaves on the Trees. Yeah, thank you very much for the congratulations. So yeah, I mean, very exciting times. We'll see, and try to get the preparations going as you get closer to the wedding. Jelly Dude says, was the wedding scheduled during the close season for a reason? I mean, you could say so, but I mean, that was just the timing that we were looking at in general. So it wasn't really a case where, we purposely did it in the off-season period. It was just a date that we felt was the right time. So yeah. David Mansour says, I've made a wild card now without Haaland and Saka, and I will try to transfer them for free next week. So I think I have an advantage of the earlier week. So I think for this case, it's quite interesting because this season, the wild card is a bit of a different chip. It's no longer a case where you will miss out on your transfers or you lose your transfers once you wildcard. Now, because you can carry your transfers through, I think it's something that we should also think about just before the wildcard, whether we should hold off of moves, try to carry a couple of transfers into the wildcard, because as obviously as David has mentioned here, if you have like 2 or 3 transfers banked, your team could look quite different in that you can plan to take more advantage of the kind of fixtures right at the get-go, and then further down the line, maybe 1 or 2 game weeks down the road, you kind of use your 2 and 3 transfers as a whole to kind of switch out those players that shorter term were good options when you wildcarded, but then longer term not as good, right? But because you have those transfers banked, that is a viable option for you as compared to someone who didn't have any of these kind of rolled transfers. They simply have to build a wildcard team that's good for the long run, maybe sacrificing a couple of picks that are less than optimal in that particular wildcard week. So yeah, I mean, just things that I'm also thinking about in terms of wildcarding this season. It's not that I have transfers to go in to roll into my Game Week 6 wildcard, because I don't. I've already done Isak to Watkins. That is my one transfer this week, and I'm carrying 0 free transfers into the wildcard. So I'm not in a position where I will be able to think of these kind of moves, but I think it's perfectly viable. Thank you all so much for the congratulations in the chat. Melvin as well, thank you very much. Percival, FPL Jelly as well, thank you all so much. Salah triple captain this week? Probably not. Jota to Palmer or leave it for this game week? No, I wouldn't do it. Keep Isak or bring in Solanke. No funds for Watkins. For free, I would remove Isak and I'd go for either one of Solanke, Solanke, Dominic Calvert-Lewin or Vardy. Chewy FPL, nice to see you. Captain Palmer, Son or Haaland. Currently I'm Palmer. I think among those 3, I would go Palmer as well. Yeah. Thank you very much, VJ. Like target is 200, a little way to go. Let's see how many likes we have. There are 123 likes, so thank you all so much. We have already hit the usual stream target of 100 likes, so thank you all so much for that. Really appreciate that. Can you do the best wildcard draft? I don't think that has changed too much from the draft that I uploaded. Let me just have a look at the draft that I uploaded. Don't think it's changed too much, to be honest. Smith Rowe for Kevin Schade. That's probably the only change. I mean, I'm looking at the wildcard draft that I've made for Gameweek 5 in the earlier video this week. That's probably the only one. Like, if not, I think it's pretty much going to be the same. And especially for those who are on a Gameweek 5 wildcard, what I would say is it will be worth looking at a Gameweek 6 wildcard, like building a Gameweek 6 wildcard, and then seeing how close you can get to that right now in Gameweek 5. And it is also perfectly viable to go for a Gameweek 6 wildcard now in Gameweek 5. Like, so just bear that one in mind. That would be what I'd be thinking of. FPL Vast says, I prefer starting Wood over Smith Rowe this game week due to more minutes. Smith Rowe for sub, front seven, Salah, Jota, Eze, Rogers, Haaland, Wood, and João Pedro. Smith Rowe and João Pedro. I mean, I may, in your position, I may bench João Pedro and start Smith Rowe. But it is close. So I don't mind the way you've gone for it as well. I think it's fine. Shouldn't we be using our banked transfers instead of a wild card? I mean, ideally, yes, right? Ideally, we do that. And some teams will be in that position. But I just think this season, at least the way it's panned out, like for my own team as well, I've had to transfer out players like Nkunku, for example, deal with that. I also needed to transfer in Salah, for example, so I needed to get the funds for Salah. I don't see many people being in positions where you would have many bank transfers such that you can roll the transfer. So such that you can save the wild card. So if you are in that position, it is quite a fortunate position to be in. So, I mean, if it allows you to then save the wild card, you would be quite far ahead in terms of, chips wise. So, yeah, perfectly viable as well. It's just a matter of people not having that many transfers. Eze or Smith Rowe to start? I would start Eze. Play two of these, Lewis, Gabriel, Robinson. Gabriel and Robinson. Right, we'll be streaming for another 5 to 10 minutes. So if I haven't gotten to your questions, I do apologize. Please do just drop them in the chat. And I'll try to get to all of them. Let's do a speed round, basically. I have a question. I used the 2 transfers this week before activating the wildcard and then activated it later. Will I have them next week? Yes, you will. Yes, you will. You will have them still next week. No love for Havertz. I just think that because I definitely want triple Arsenal in game week 6, right? So I just think double defense feels like the way to go until Odegaard comes back. Like, I know for some people, Havertz is still a good option, which I think so still as well. It's just the Odegaard missing out and recent kind of attacking performances not being as solid. I mean, they did play Spurs, right? So I don't expect them to be, firing and scoring that many goals. But yeah, I mean, even in midweek as well, in the Champions League, like they did not kind of break down Atlanta as well as I hope they would. So I still think for now, at least for the next few game weeks, I would go double defense. But I also think that Havertz could get returns against Leicester and Southampton. So, I mean, the fixtures are so good. I think it's more about the longer term. Like, does Havertz as a third Arsenal asset outscore someone like Raya? Because I would imagine it's Gabriel, Saka, and Havertz versus Gabriel, Saka, and then Raya. So, what would be the difference there? That's just, where I'm leaning towards. Toby in the chat, nice to see you. Let's go game week 5. I do hope this is a game week that the assets can pull through. Like, in all honesty, I need players like Rogers to come good, man. Gibbs White for Doku, a solid move this week. Probably wouldn't do that. Bring in Calvert-Lewin and Watkins for Havertz and Pedro. I don't mind that. I'm assuming you're wildcarding in game week 6. Then I wouldn't mind that. Should I transfer out Isak for Watkins and play Gordon, or transfer out Muniz and play Isak? I like the first option. Benching Minte, yes. I prefer to start Smith Rowe ahead of him because predictors have Minte likely to be benched in game week 5. Martin, nice to see you. Gabriel or Konza, who do you start? I would start Konza. David, answered your question already. Thoughts on Harvey Barnes? I mean, if Isak misses out, I think Harvey Barnes likely will start. Raya over Flecken or no? It depends on your Arsenal triple up. It depends on your Arsenal triple up. Or if you're asking me, because I thought you were talking about a wild card, so it really depends on your triple up. But if you are not on a wild card, you have both Raya and Flecken. Who would you start? I think I'd start Raya, Do you prefer Wood or Vardy for game week 5? And don't you think that Bournemouth players are better than Kevin Schade? Alright, so the first part is whether I prefer Wood or Vardy for a game week 5 wildcard. If I'm on a wildcard and assuming you need to keep the player for quite a while, I think Wood over Vardy. Don't you think that Bournemouth players are better than Kevin Schade? For the longer term, at least all the way until game week 10, I've taken a look at the fixtures. Bournemouth's won. They have good fixtures in 6 and 7, but 8, 9, 10 is quite bad for Bournemouth. So really, from now until game week 10, I actually think I would go for Kevin Schade ahead of someone like Semenyo, which I assume that's the player you're referring to. Mitoma or Gibbs White? Mitoma, because he has the home fixture, but Gibbs White is on penalties. But I still go Mitoma for the home fixture this week. Konza or Gabriel? Konza. Between João Pedro and Madueke, who would you bench? I would bench João Pedro and I start Madueke. João Pedro and Luca Dean, or Vardy and Konza on a Game Week 5 wildcard. If I'm on a Game Week 5 wildcard, I'd actually go Calvert-Lewin and Konza, if possible. Konza or Luca Dean this week, who to buy cheap defense? Alright, so the thing with Luca Dean is that he has always been an FPL troll, but that aside, I think what he offers on the left back position and putting in lots of crosses, I can see the appeal for Luca Dean. If I have to choose one for the short term, I don't mind Luca Dean, but longer term, I think Konza is the safer option. Surely when the games come thick and fast, especially now when there's Champions League already, that Luca Dean will start to be rotated a little bit. So I think in terms of safety of minutes, I go for Konza. 1 week punt, I don't mind Luca Dean for this week. Harvey Barnes should be starting regardless of Isak. Well, they have Jacob Murphy. He does exist. I mean, I do think that Barnes is playing better than Murphy for what it's worth. But yeah, I mean, if Isak starts, it could. I mean, there's also a possibility that it's Isak Gordon and Barnes. That could also work. But you would agree with me that if Isak misses out, it's even more likelihood of Barnes starting. So, but I agree with you in that Harvey Barnes should be starting. I think he has been doing so well in recent times that if I was the manager, if I was Eddie Howe, I would start Harvey Barnes ahead of Jacob Murphy. Who to bench? Smith Rowe, Rogers, or Madueke? Either one of Smith Rowe or Rogers. That's where I'd go. Likely Smith Rowe, if I have to choose one. Update on Calvert-Lewin. He's back on the grass. He's recovered from his illness. Do you think Trent is a good captain call if you have no Salah and don't fancy Haaland? Yes, I do. Would you go Mbeumo plus Shada on a wild card? Are there better options at that price? Yes. I would go Mbeumo and Shada on a wild card. Not that I don't think there are better options for Shada. I mean, Mbeumo is pretty much a lock, but Shada, I think he's the one that's likely going to start in the number 9 spot. If you can stretch to maybe 6 or even 6.5 million, then there will be better options. But at his price point, 5.4 million, I quite like that. Livramento to Aina, a good option. For what it's worth, I still think Livramento will start this week ahead of Trippier, but there's risk there, of course. Would I do it this week? I mean, I don't think it's the move that I would do this week, to be honest. Yeah, no worries at all, David. All good. Boyson says, start Rico, Robinson, Saka, or Welbeck. It has to be, you have to start Saka, I mean. And then you have to start Welbeck as well. So... Oh, it's between one of them. I want to start Saka and Welbeck, so I'll see who else you can bench in your team. Rico or Robinson, then I choose Robinson. Alright, last couple of questions before we call it a day. Thank you all for tuning in. There are quite a number of you guys that tuned in today. There's already, it's now 138, so it's come down a bit. But thank you all for tuning into today's stream. Just to answer the last couple of questions before we call it a day. Should I bench Isak to start Smith Rowe? Current midfielders are Mitoma, Rogers, Eze, Salah, forwards are Haaland and Jackson. Bench Isak to start Smith Rowe. Do you have money to go Isak to Watkins? If you have, I think I might do that. I might be tempted for the 1 week punt. Who to bench, Rogers or Vardy? I would start Vardy and I would bench Rogers. Alright, so thank you all for tuning in. It's been a fun stream as well. All the best for Game Week 5. Hopefully green arrows for everyone. And yeah, look out for the Game Week 6 content because I will be wildcarding in Game Week 6. So videos out later today after the Saturday games, tomorrow after the Sunday games as well. Lots of content coming, wildcard specific as well, but it would be useful whether or not you are on a wildcard. So keep a lookout for that one. Turn on the notification bells. Please do subscribe to support the channel. And I will catch you guys in more Game Week 6 content that's coming soon. But for now, all the best for Game Week 5 and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Bye-bye.